Welcome to Spilling the Tea on Non-Monogamy with me, Gaz Darkwood. Spilling the Tea is a podcast dedicated to speaking with different people who practice non-monogamy in all of its forms to pull together as many different perspectives and experiences as possible, all into one place. On each episode, I'll be joined by a different guest to talk about their own non-monogamy experiences. I'm always looking for more guests, and without you, there would be no podcast. So if you would like to be a guest, please send an email to spillingtheteapodcast@outlook.com. On this episode, I am joined by John.
Hello there.
Hi, how are you doing?
I'm doing well. I'm been enjoying the sunny weather and enjoying getting out and meeting more people as the weather's warmed up.
Okay, it makes a difference, doesn't it? Yeah. So let's get started with, first I'll ask, do you mind telling me how old you are and how long you've been practicing non-monogamy?
I'm in my early 70s now. From about my early 30s, I was in an open relationship that lasted about 12 years. And that worked really well for both of us. I've not been in multiple relationships since then, but when that first relationship came to an end, I got involved in a number of Tantra courses and personal development courses that meant I developed a whole different sense of how to relate to people at a level of emotional intimacy. And it just seemed to make much more sense to me to be able to do this with multiple people at once rather than to expect all those needs to be met from just one person. So that's my view at the moment of polyamory or ethical non-monogamy. It's wider than whether I'm just having sex with more than one person at a time.
Yeah, I think that's kind of a common theme with, especially when people talk about polyamory over non-monogamy as a more broader term. But with polyamory, that most people we talk to say that. And I also class myself as polyamorous, so I say the same thing. Yeah, it's not just about sex. It's more about... It's very easy to use the word connection, but I don't know if that even really describes it properly, but it is more about like being able to put more focus on individual relationships regardless of what they are, whether they're sexual or whether they're not. But you sort of take away the boundary which says you're only allowed to have these type of feelings for one person at a time. You could have those feelings for multiple people at the same time or not, but the option is always there, or it's always a possibility. And I think that's kind of a key thing with it.
Yes, I think the word I tend to use is intimacy, by which I mean a state of openness and trust, a feeling of affection for each other, a willingness to make ourselves vulnerable to the other person. And I don't need to be in a romantic or sexual relationship with people to do that. And one of the things I really got about the encounters I had with all sorts of other people doing Tantra groups and so on is that it's really valuable to have quite detailed discussions with your partner about boundaries and agreements, which is about much more than who you might be sleeping with. So there are questions like, is it okay to have cuddles with other people? Is it okay to be kissing other people? Can we be naked with other people? Can we share a hot tub or shower with other people? Can we do a massage swap? Is it okay for us to be having a sexy dance with someone else, or to have a meal out with somebody else? Is it okay to stay overnight or for a weekend or even go on holiday with somebody else? Is it okay if we share a bed just to sleep and cuddle but without having sex? Is it okay to do exercises with other people at a Tantra workshop? And I've engaged in most of those activities over the years with multiple people that I wasn't in an ongoing relationship with. And it was just so nourishing. It felt like this is what I was made to do. And I suspect a lot of people feel that human beings are made to do. But those are not, in my experience, the sorts of conversations that people have if they see themselves as monogamous, because they just sort of make these assumptions about what the other person thinks is okay. And it's only when the boundaries get crossed that suddenly there's a big problem blows up.
Yeah, I think you've got some great points there. And one thing that I always talk about is what I like to call monogamous programming. And I think that we're all basically from birth, we are programmed by society to be monogamous, but even by the things we see on TV, films, books, advertising, it's always just a couple, and that's it. And that we're just, and even though we're not specifically told this is how you should do things, we're just shown it so much that we never even question that there are other possibilities and that there are different ways of doing things. And yeah, you're completely right when you say that people don't have those conversations. People don't ask those sorts of questions in monogamous relationships. And I was just read something a couple of days ago which kind of blew my mind online, and it was someone saying, someone asked a question whether people are comfortable with their partner going out or meeting up with a friend of the opposite gender one-on-one. So basically, this is a man comfortable with his female partner spending time with another man in a one-on-one scenario? And I was like, what? Why is this even a question? What is the problem here? But so many people were responding saying, I can't even repeat some of the things they were saying, that it's disrespectful. Why would you do that? One person even commented themselves and said, I wouldn't want to spend time with another woman one-on-one because anything that I can get from another woman, I get from my wife. I don't need to spend time with another woman one-on-one. And it's just crazy to me how this monogamous programming has made people think. No one's ever been told this specifically. There's not been monogamy lesson. Or one thing I will say, I don't want to say all monogamous people are like that. I think this was very much toxic monogamy. But that no one's had a class on that. No one sat down and be told, right, so you two are a couple now. That means neither of you can spend time one-on-one with members of the opposite sex. Again, this is all very heteronormative as well.
Yeah.
But everyone, they all just think that and feel that and act as if that's, it's fact and that's just the way of the world. And it really kind of blew my mind, especially coming from a polyamory perspective, where anything is kind of an option. Anyone, why would it matter if someone's going out with someone? If my partner was going out with another woman or another man, or if it was a group setting or if it was a one-on-one, makes no difference to me. I don't really understand what it is that makes people think that way.
Yeah. I'm thinking, I can remember once having a housemate who got absolutely lividly furious with her partner because he had sent a text to another woman and signed it XXX at the end. That's all he'd done, is put some X's at the end of a text. And she was livid. Whereas if I think of a conversation I had with a partner where we were trying to agree boundaries around the whole issue of ethical non-monogamy, the agreement she was comfortable with was that she said, you can share your bed with another woman as long as you don't use the duvet that I bought for us. She wasn't fussed about what we did in bed. What was mattered to her was the duvet. And that's just not the sort of conversation that I expect monogamous people are having with each other.
No, not at all. And I think that's a very good sign, where I think there are a lot of monogamous people where if you tell them you are ethically non-monogamous, or if you tell them you're polyamorous, or whatever the case may be, that they think like, oh, you're just basically a slut and you just go around fucking anyone all the time.
Yes. Yeah.
And I think that sort of thing would blow their mind, that like, no, there is a boundary there. Like, no, yeah, you can have sex with people, just not with this duvet that I bought for us. And
yes,
I think that would blow their mind. But I think that's a very reasonable thing. I think it's very common, actually, among non-monogamous couples, that like, yeah, you can do stuff with other people, but not in our bed. That's our space. That's for us. That's not for other people. I don't have a problem with you doing those things, but just not in our space. Yeah. I mean, I know it's not a discussion we've had a lot with my partners, but I've certainly heard of other polyamorous people. It's
there's a very distinct boundary. Is can you do various things with someone else outside our house, or can you invite them back to our house and socialize with them together in our house? And that sort of boundary of who's allowed into our space and what do you do there is a really major one.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that's one of those things which is different for a lot of people. And I think if you went and, read a book on non-monogamy or polyamory, they're probably going to say one thing. But actually, if you talk to people about that specific boundary, you're going to get lots of different answers. Some people will say, no, I don't want anyone my partner's saying to be in my house. That's my house. I don't want them there. Some may say, yeah, they can come in. It's fine, but only when I'm out. Some may say, yeah, they can come in and we can hang out together because I want to get to know them as well. I want to get to know the person my partner's saying. Or like, yes, you can come in the house. You can be there when I'm not there, but you can't have sex in the house. Or, all these different sort of variables. And it kind of just goes to show that how different it can be and how different everyone's experiences are and everyone's boundaries are, and how the key thing is the communication, which will bring those boundaries about by being able to talk about those things in the first place.
Yeah. I mean, I was really lucky. That first open relationship that I talked about, it began as a sort of extramarital affair. She was married but not completely happy, and so she was getting involved with various other men, of whom I was one. And then we got on well enough that she invited me to come and live with her. And I was really lucky that her husband, who she sort of emotionally separated from, was comfortable sharing the house. So the three of us were in a largish house together, but we used to take it in turns cooking the family meals, and the three adults and the children would sit round the dinner table every evening and as a family. And I was really lucky that at no point did he ever express any sort of animosity towards me, and so it just worked.
And that's one of those things, I think, where that did work for this specific set of three people in this one specific scenario, but any different set of people, it may not work like that at all. It could be completely different, and that's okay, because everyone's going to be different, and that people shouldn't have expectations of... this is one thing that I think that can be kind of problematic, is that some people within the non-monogamy world look at other people and the way they're doing things, and they kind of expect the same. And then it doesn't necessarily work out for them, and then they think, hang on, what's wrong? What's wrong with me? Or why isn't it working for me the way it works for them? And the real answer is because everyone's different. Even if you were in that same situation as them with the same people, it probably wouldn't be the same, because you're not that person. It would still be different anyway. It's an old saying, isn't it, that comparison is the thief of joy. If you compare yourself to other people, you're never going to find happiness in that.
Yeah. And I think what's really, really essential, if we're going to have these sorts of detailed conversations about where the boundaries are for us in particular, that you've got to have a situation where it's not just acceptable but desirable to be really open and honest with each other and get the consent of everybody involved. I mean, so often people use the term cheating, and to me, ethical non-monogamy is not cheating, because you're being open and honest about it. And I'm guessing that for a lot of people who have been cheated, what actually hurts was the lying and the deceit and the covering up, more than the fact that their partner might have been having sex with somebody else. It's the fact that they were lying about it. And those sorts of lies just destroy the trust and openness. And the more you can have an honest conversation, get consent of everybody involved, that actually builds trust and it builds openness.
Yeah, this is one of these things. Oh, sorry, go on. I thought you were finished, but you can continue.
Yes, I mean, I think it's unfortunate that a lot of conventional religions and a lot of our society's attitudes condemn what they call adultery, and they tell endless stories about happy ever after couples, And if people hadn't been sort of socialized in that way, it would be much easier to be honest and open with each other. At the moment,
I completely agree.
People fear that, well, if I'm honest about it, the other person's going to get really angry and annoyed and it'll wreck our relationship. And if both people believe that and act on it, it does. It ends the relationship.
Yeah, and that's one of the things. So this brings me on to something else, actually, but that I've seen online before. People talking online, people talking about monogamous people talking hypothetically about people in open relationships, and it's the amount of times I've seen people say that if my partner even suggested an open relationship to me, I would end the relationship right there and then.
Yeah,
I wouldn't even, because it means they don't, like, the respect is gone. They have no respect for me. They don't respect the relationship because they want to do this thing. And I think that's such a crazy hill to die on for someone.
Yes.
This could be someone you've been in a relationship with for 20 years, or you could own property together, you could have children together, any of these things, and you're going to throw it all away just because they asked you a question. I find that really mind-blowing. But what I think is, and I've said this before on the podcast, but I think everyone, not just non-monogamous, polyamorous people, could do with learning the things that we as non-monogamous people learn in terms of communication, because I think every relationship would be much better. I think every monogamous relationship would be much stronger and probably more fulfilling as well, just by having that level of communication, whereby not only being able to ask the questions that you want to ask, but I think an actual more important part of it is being able to answer the other person's questions and be able to, if your partner comes to you and asks you a question, not being like, oh shit, I don't want to answer this, I don't want to tell them the truth, this is going to hurt their feelings, this is going to make them uncomfortable. No, you have to have the strength to actually answer it honestly. And so it does go both ways. It's not just about learning what you need to say to ask people, it's what you need, how you can answer their questions honestly as well. And when you have that with someone, that's it's really hard to put into words, but that kind of bond, that level of, say, connection or intimacy, where you can just be completely open with someone, and you don't ever have to feel nervous about asking them something or telling them something, because they're going to react to it well. And then you also can take comfort in the fact that they know the same about you, that they are comfortable to come to you with anything because they know you're going to react in a good way, you're going to answer their questions in a good way, you're going to help them through to find an answer together.
And in any healthy relationship, there are all sorts of other issues that have nothing to do with it being an open relationship, where the honesty and the ability to talk freely really helps. So it might be that one partner wants to say to the other, it really bothers me about the amount of mess you leave around the living room. Can we have a conversation about this? If your fear is that they're going to end the relationship just because you asked the question, it's not going to work well. Or somebody who says, I'm really unhappy in my job and I would like to change job, but that's going to make quite a difference to our finances. Can we have a conversation about this? That's a really valuable relationship skill. And if you also are able to have the conversation, I've met this person and we're really attracted to each other, can we have a conversation with each other about how you would feel about the future development of this? It can only help each other.
Yeah, and that's exactly what I mean by like this just the level of communication that I think we learn, say, when exploring ethical non-monogamy, or maybe specifically polyamory. It's like lesson 1 really is communicate is the name of the game, and that's the first thing we learn. It's the most vital part, but yet there's so many monogamous relationships out there that don't know it, and they will probably never learn it because they don't have a reason to. And I kind of think it's a shame, because it could make so many relationships so much stronger and happier in the long run.
And I also find it odd that so many people have a completely different way of thinking about what you might call sexual relationships and the way they think about all their other friendships. I mean, I used to be a junior school teacher, and I had I was teaching kids of sort of 6 or 7, and occasionally you would come with kids who had a best friend, and they only wanted their best friend to hang out with them. And if their best friend wanted to go and play with somebody else, they got dreadfully upset, and you had to find a way of helping the child realize this is not a particularly mature way of behaving. All of us need to have multiple friends. And by the time we're adults, there are all sorts of different activities that we want to do with different people. Maybe there's one friend I like playing tennis with, somebody else I like dancing with, somebody else I have deep political and philosophical conversations with. There's somebody else I go for a country walk with, or people who we're both foodies and we enjoy eating different sorts of food. I don't expect one partner to do all of those things for me and refuse to be friends with anybody else, because it's just not going to happen. You're not going to get all of those needs met by the same person. And to me, ethical non-monogamy is just about, we have needs and feelings within relationships, and some of those are going to get met better with one person than with another, but we don't have to try and do it all with one person.
No, yeah, I completely agree with you. And this is something I've said before, actually, that like we all have, let's say, every person, I think, I say most people on the planet have open relationships. And that doesn't mean in terms of sex or romance or any of that, but in terms of friendships. Everyone has multiple friends, and they have different friends they do different things with. And if you had said like, oh, I've got this friend that I go and, like you say, I go for a walk in nature with. I have this friend that I go out for dinner with. I have this friend that I go to the cinema with. Any monogamous person understands that. They would say, well, yeah, you've got multiple friends and you do different things because you have different friends who like different things. As soon as you say, well, I'm having sex with this person, I'm dating this person, and I sometimes go and do things with this person, they go, hang on, what?
Yeah.
This is one thing that, like, I don't understand the difference. You know, if my partner says to me, oh, I'm going on a date with this person tonight, I'm okay, cool. I'm going to this person's house to have a takeaway. All right, cool. I'm going to the cinema with this person to watch a film. Okay, cool. It's all the same. What difference does it make what they're doing?
Yeah. I mean, going back to the open relationship I had personal experience of. She was involved in a national committee who used to meet in London periodically. So every now and again, she would go up to London for a weekend for these committee meetings. And I always missed her while she was away, but there was no way I was going to say, you can't get involved in this committee meeting because I need you to be in my company to meet my needs 7 days a week. It happened that while she was in London, she would sleep with one or other of the people on the committee. But it wasn't that was particularly problematic for me. It was the fact that she was away for the weekend and I missed her company. But there was no way I was going to stop her going away because she was entitled to do that.
Yeah, I think that's the thing as well, where that there's a thing with, I guess it's a thing with jealousy, and I think I've talked about this before, the difference between jealousy and envy, but where a lot of the feelings and like insecurities aren't about what the other person's doing, they're about you, yourself. So like you say, it's not that you necessarily have an issue with what your partner's doing, it's more the fact that, well, you're at home on your own with nothing to do because she's gone.
Yes.
So it's not that I don't want you going away and doing this thing with this other person. It's that actually I'm going to be lonely and I'd rather have you here. But I think that's a completely natural feeling to have. But then the thing is how you go about communicating that, how you deal with those feelings. Like you say, do you kick off and say, no, I don't want you to go, I want you to stay because of X, Y, and Z? Or do you say, look, I understand that you want to go, you're completely free to, I just want you to know that I feel a little bit sad about it because I'm going to miss you. And they're probably going to take that really well. And they're going to understand, they're going to completely understand. But just by being able to say those, that handful of words to the person can make all the difference.
Yeah, yeah. And I think one of the other issues that often comes up when people think in hypothetically about having more than one partner is how on earth would we make the time for it? And yet, when I think about it, there are all sorts of activities that people have that take them away from their partner. They might be working long hours. They might enjoy going to the gym or playing sport. They might volunteer with community groups. They might sit and watch movies on television. They might have a shed where they go and potter around fixing things. They do the gardening. They walk the dog. They read a newspaper. All of those activities take up a lot of your time when you're not with your partner. I mean, I can think of another partner I was with. Her elderly father had Alzheimer's disease. And so every second weekend, she would travel away to go and help look after her father. So this meant that every other weekend, I was on my own. I had to find other ways of occupying myself. Now, I mean, this was a woman being loving towards her father, but in terms of time or in terms of emotional investment in somebody else, it was really no different from if she'd said, I've got this partner in another town and every other weekend I want to go and spend the weekend with him. I can't see the difference in terms of what impact it would have made on me. But there's no way I can say I was going to tell her, you can't go and spend the weekend looking after your elderly father because I need you to spend your time with me.
Yeah, and then maybe the thing that you do say is like, okay, I'm going to miss you when you're away. Can we make some plans for, say, the Monday evening after you get back to spend some time together to catch up or to reconnect with them?
Yes, or even perhaps I can come with you and the three of us can meet up together and nobody has to miss out.
Yeah, exactly. And like you say, it all comes back to that communication, just being able to, you could sit there and be upset about it and you can let that upset turn to frustration, turn to anger, and you can end up taking it out on your partner or even coming to resent your partner, which I think a lot of people do that because they will bottle things up and then end up coming to resent their partners when they could just communicate it in the first place and it would make things so much easier.
And I mean, you were mentioning a little while back about feelings of jealousy. And I think one of the things I've been really lucky with is that I never really experienced jealousy with any existing partner I had. I'm not sure why, but it just isn't a feeling that seems to arise with me. And I can only conclude that somehow once I'm in a relationship, I tend to feel very emotionally secure. So I don't make the assumption, oh, you're involved with somebody else, therefore you're going to like them better than me, or they're going to offer you something I can't offer, and therefore you're going to go off with them and leave me. And I think there's a lot of people unconsciously suffer a sort of poor self-esteem. They automatically assume that if their partner meets somebody else, that the other person is going to be so much better. And if you think monogamously, then you assume that your partner has to choose between the two of you, which gives a 50-50 chance they will leave you. And then it's not surprising that leaves you feeling insecure.
Yeah, there's a thing as well with like monogamous couples where people, I don't know, like, oh, I see things, because I read a lot of things online, people posting stuff that questions or asking for advice or just venting about their situations. Like, oh, my partner has been coming home late from work a lot recently. Oh, I think they're probably cheating. And like, well, okay, maybe they are, but like, if they are, doesn't that kind of say a lot about your relationship anyway? That would you really want to be in a relationship with this person? Clearly, it's not. And the people that go like, no, I don't. I'm like some people, it just doesn't even cross their mind their partner might be cheating because they're that secure in the relationship. They just, it's not a concern. Like, no, like, why would I ever need to think that? And there's a thing where I've, reading about people like snooping through through their partner's phones and things. And something that I think quite a good little saying, I don't know if I'll word it correctly, is that if you go looking for something, you're going to find it.
Yep.
So if you think, oh, well, they're probably cheating on me, I'm going to go root through their phone and find it. Well, if you got to a point where you felt like you needed to go snooping through their phone, then the party's already over. Like that should tell you enough. At that point, before looking through their phone, just from the knowledge of knowing that that's the next step you want to take, you should stop there and reevaluate the relationship. Because if you really have that little trust in your partner that you want to go snooping through their phone to check if they might be cheating on you or not, then I think that relationship's already over.
It is. I mean, it what it tells you is that they don't have the communication skills to be honest with each other, and they don't trust each other to tell the truth. So she could say, I've noticed you're often coming back late, and I'm wondering whether you are working late or whether you're involved with somebody else. If you trust your partner to be honest, you can have that conversation. If you're convinced your partner's going to lie to you and cover it up, and you know that you're going to blow your top if they answer that they are seeing somebody else, well, it's a sort of almost guaranteed failure.
Yeah, exactly. And if you're so convinced that your partner's cheating on you and that even if you confront them, they're going to lie about it, so you're never going to find out the truth anyway, what's the difference? Like, if that doesn't change it. It doesn't matter if they are actually cheating on you or not. You have so little faith in the relationship that clearly this isn't a happy relationship. And that kind of segues into something else, actually, that I think a lot of monogamous couples put a lot of stock in permanence, or at least long-term situations. So a lot of monogamous couples, and I know lots of monogamous couples, but I know some couples or some people that are just constantly complaining about their relationships, constantly complaining about their partners. And I always think, you don't have to be with this person. You could be happy with someone else. You could be happy single. You clearly don't seem happy now, but they seem to think that, well, I'm in it now, I have to stay in it. And I think with non-monogamous people, polyamorous people, I think that and having that extra level of communication, I think people are more open to saying, I don't think this is working anymore.
Yeah.
This doesn't feel how it used to. Maybe this isn't working. Maybe we're doing slightly different things now. We've got different things going on in our lives now. We haven't got as much time for each other as we had before, or something's changed or something. So I don't think this is really working. And then so many people that I talk to in like polyamorous circles that still talk to their exes, because they tend to be amicable breakups, because it's not you cheated on me, I'm gonna scream the house down, or I'm gonna all of these big things, and now I hate you and you're the worst person in the world. It's just like, this isn't working the way it used to. Should we give it a rest? Yeah, you know what? I think you're right. Yeah, we can still be friends, but we don't. This whole relationship thing isn't working, and that's it. But you don't seem. Again, you need that level of communication to be able to come to that, whereas monogamous people don't. And I think they put so much stock in permanence. When they get into a relationship, they think, and again, I think this is this monogamous programming where we're all kind of led to believe that we should partner up and stay with that partner for the rest of our lives, that's it. They don't ever think outside of that bubble that actually I could just not be with this person anymore.
Yes, I mean, I'm still on very good friendly terms with, I think, at least 4 of my ex-partners, and most of them have met each other and are comfortable being in each other's company, particularly around the transition from one relationship to another. We quite often used to meet up. I would say, this is my new partner, here's my ex-partner. It's nice. It's a good opportunity for each of you to learn what else has been happening in my life. And I'm always deeply puzzled by the number of people who say, I don't want you to talk about your ex-partners. I don't want to hear anything about them. Because that sort of implies you made some absolutely disastrous choices about your previous partners, and they messed your life up so much that you not only split up, you don't even want to talk to them or meet them now. And I am the latest of those choices. That doesn't augur very well to me. Whereas if my partner says, yes, I'm really on good terms with my ex, we came to an amicable agreement that it wasn't working for us to live together, but we enjoyed each other's company and we'd had so many good times and we still have deep feelings of love and affection for each other, the thought that she might be talking about me that way in the future, I feel is much more reassuring.
Yeah, and that's a thing as well. I think that with people that don't talk to any exes at all or want to keep it, and there's a thing that I've seen before, like online, where people will say about like, oh, my last few partners have all been an absolute nightmare, they've all ended really badly. And, you know, there's a certain level of, if you smell shit first thing in the morning, you smell shit. If you smell shit all day, everywhere you go, you've eventually got to check your own shoe.
Yeah.
First, you know, there's a little bit of a red flag in the fact that someone says, like, well, what's the lowest common denominator here? Because it's not all your partners, it's you, which then makes me question, okay, so why did all these relationships end badly?
Yes, whereas if my partner says, all of my 4 previous relationships were very loving and nurturing and fulfilling, and now you're my latest choice, I think, well, she's probably made a very sound choice, because she and I are loving and nurturing and fulfilling. It's the thought that...
Yeah, and sorry, go on.
This partner has chosen to spend years of their lives with somebody else, and now they're choosing to spend years of their life with me. Is this a good choice or a bad choice? And if their history is bad choices, it's not a good sign.
Definitely. And it's something you say, actually, when you use the word choose, is a thing that I comes down to, I think, with like in non-monogamous relationships, that, you know, when people, like you were saying about people getting insecure about, like, oh, if my partner goes off with this person, are they going to like them more than me, or something? Like, just, they chose, they're still with you, and they chose you. They didn't end the relationship with you to go off with someone else. They could do that.
Yeah.
You know, in a monogamous relationship, they may cheat, but in a non-monogamous relationship, like, they still chose you. They may be going and doing something with this person tonight, but then they're going to choose to do something with you tomorrow. And the thing is, at the end of the day, it's their decision. They can choose to not want to see you anymore, but they're still choosing to see you. And that's, you know, when people, I've seen things where people are just like, want extra reassurances before their partner goes on a date, or want to spend some time together, or anything. And I always think, like, the best bit of reassurance they can give you is very much unspoken. It's the fact that they still choose you, because they could just end the relationship with you and then go off with this other person, but they're not doing that. They're staying with you when they don't have to, because they're still choosing you.
Yes. And I think a lot of people want monogamy, or they want marriage, because it somehow makes them feel as if the relationship is more secure. And I'm just not convinced that it does necessarily make the relationship more secure. It feels a bit more like putting somebody into a prison, or signing them up to a commercial contract that they have to agree, otherwise there'll be penalties to be paid. I want my partner to stay with me and spend time with me because they're getting enjoyment out of it. And if it reaches the stage where they're actually getting more enjoyment with somebody else and they're not enjoying my company, I might be really sad and upset about the parting, but I really, really don't want to feel that they're staying with me out of some sort of duty because they made an agreement 10 years ago. I want them to feel
what you were
free
saying about,
to move on when the time has come to move on.
Exactly. And I think what you said about the idea of, like, putting someone in a prison, for instance, like in a monogamous relationship, you know, with that stuff, you are, in a way, you are kind of trapping someone. And when someone's trapped in a cage, they can't get out the front door. They have to try and sneak around and find a back way out, which is when things like cheating happens, because they feel trapped. They're stuck in this relationship. They can't just get out of it. Therefore, they have to try and find ways to get what they want while they're still trapped in this cage. And then things like cheating happens. Whereas, because people don't have the conversations and think, okay, this relationship isn't working anymore, because they, you know, that thing that they're like, oh, we're in a relationship now, we're adults, we're in a relationship, so we have to stay in this relationship until death do us part, or however you want to think of it. And without that door to the cage being open for them to walk out whenever they want, they're going to try and find some sneaky back way to get what it is they want.
Yeah. I mean, if I take the example of that open relationship I mentioned at the beginning, when I met her, she was a married woman and it was an extramarital affair. She was having all these affairs because she couldn't have these sort of open conversations with her husband. And the result was that she did cheat on him. Whereas once she was staying with me, because she could get involved with other men openly and talk about it, she stuck with me for 12 years. And in fact, the only thing that ended the relationship is that she got involved with another man who wanted her to be monogamous, and so she had to make a choice. But the fact that we were in an open relationship together for all those years actually made it work, and she stayed with me, whereas the husband who wasn't willing to have the conversations with her, she ended up separating from him.
Yeah, and that's actually kind of a good point on the whole, so in that sense, the monogamous relationship didn't work, whereas the non-monogamous relationship did work. Because something I see online all the time from monogamous people is that open relationships don't work. They always fail. Eventually they will fail. And my response to when people say that is, do you have an ex?
Yes.
Most people, you have an ex? You do. Okay, so that monogamous relationship failed.
Yeah.
So how are you quantifying that one? So you say open relationships never work because a few of the ones you've heard about online didn't work, but yet you've got an ex. So therefore, can I now say monogamy doesn't work because your monogamous relationships failed? Yeah. I don't think there's anyone that I know that hasn't had an ex-partner.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't say monogamy doesn't work because of that. I'm sure it does for some people and for a lot of people. And I don't think you can quantify that in that way. But it's just different how it can work in certain situations for certain people. I think some people maybe monogamy does work. Some people non-monogamy works better. But like in your situation, for your partner at the time, actually the non-monogamous relationship is what she needed to actually keep a relationship going.
Yes, and in fact, when she did meet this other guy and choose to leave me, she said to me quite explicitly that if she had met him 10 years earlier, it wouldn't have worked because she really wanted to have the freedom to explore her sexuality. And so she was very explicit that at the time she met me and at the time we were together, that was what worked for her, and that the other guy wouldn't have worked for her before. It's sort of a matter.
Yeah, and that's stuff that. Sorry, go on.
I mean, it's a matter of sometimes you need different people or different relationships for different stages of your life.
And that's what I was about to say, is that it's not necessarily just the person or the people involved in the relationship. It can be the timing as well. And, some point of time, and this isn't a non-monogamy thing. This is for everyone in any situation. You could meet up with someone or bump into someone or go on a date with someone or anything, and actually it doesn't end well. It doesn't go well for whatever reason. But then 5 years later, you meet the same person, and then something is different, and you actually click, and you get on really well. And there was nothing wrong the first time you met them. It's just it wasn't the time. And I don't mean that as in, one of you maybe wasn't ready for the right thing. One of you had different priorities, or you wanted different things, or maybe you had different interests, and you've outgrown those interests, and you've got new interests which you now share with this person. So you can't always put it down to this person is wrong for you. The person could be right for you, just not when you want it, or not right now.
Yeah. I mean, another idea I'd like to feed into the conversation is a sort of a word that tends to get used quite a lot within the polyamory community, but not much elsewhere. It's sort of the opposite of jealousy, is what they call compersion, where you get happiness and joy from your partner's happiness and joy. And I often compare it with a parent who really, really enjoys watching their children playing and hearing them laughing. And the parent feels happy because their children are happy. If I have a partner and she comes home and says, "Oh, I've just spent an evening with this other partner, and we had such fun and we had a fantastic time in bed, and she enthuses about it, I can actually really feel happy for the amount of enjoyment she's had. In the same way as if she said, I went out to the choir and I felt so good about the singing we were doing, or I did this project at work and the team were just such fantastic people to be working with. The fact that she's enjoying her life and is happy and enthusiastic about it feeds positively into my relationship with her.
Yeah, I think I have talked about compersion previously on the podcast, but I'm completely with you. And I think that to me, it should be kind of a normal thing to find happiness in the person you care about experiencing happiness, and being able to share that with them. Like if you really care about someone, you should want to see them happy. You should want them to be happy. Yeah. And like you said, the whole thing with, parents seeing their children having fun and laughing and smiling and things I think that's the same thing. You're happy. You take joy in seeing this person you care about experiencing happiness, and the same works for partners. And it's strange, isn't it? Because like you said, the whole say singing in a choir. So for a monogamous couple, if their partner came home and said oh, I had such a good time singing in the choir for the evening, they're probably going to say, oh, I'm really happy for you, I'm glad you enjoyed it. Whereas if they come home and say oh, I just had a really good evening with this other man, suddenly that's a big problem. Yeah. Why is it that there's some weird line drawn around sex and everything else is fine, but this one specific thing, out of the countless things you could do with another person, this one specific thing is taboo, is not allowed, is different. That's the game changer. That means something completely different. Why? At the end of the day, they still came home to you. They still told you about it, that they're happy. You can see that they're happy. Why is one thing okay and the other isn't?
Yes, and you were making the point earlier on about you are the one that they came home to. So if I have a partner and she occasionally spends a night or a weekend away with somebody else, it's me she's coming back to. It's me she shares a house with. It's me we raise our children together. It's me we have family meals together. We socialize together. We go on holidays together. We sort out our finances. We buy our house and do it up together. All of those things she shares with me. This other guy only gets to see her for a weekend. If anybody should be jealous, it's the other guy, because I've got so much more than he has.
Yeah, so I just want to put in one caveat that when I said about that they come home to you, that I think that does imply that you have let's say a primary relationship, you're cohabiting, you live together. Yes. When that could not be the case, you could have multiple partners who you don't live together, but the same applies. I just use the coming home to you more as a means for coming back together with you, reconnecting with you. Yeah. Which could be, if it's a partner you only see once a week, it's the following week when you have your next date with them, and then they're still doing that. They didn't, in the meantime, within that week, they didn't go and have a date with someone else, and now they don't want to see you again. Yeah, that plan for your next date is still there, and they still come and they still turn up.
Yeah. This is to give another example. I've got a good friend that I've known for several years now. We live quite some geographical distance away, and she's got a work life that quite often takes her abroad. So we probably only see each other maybe 2-3 times a year. But when we do meet up, we usually share a bed together just for cuddles. There's nothing sexual about it. But it's just so lovely that when we do meet up, we can have this closeness and this intimacy. And it really doesn't matter what else we've been doing in the interim, because we can just pick up where we left off. And we're still really close friends. And to me, that just feels lovely.
Yeah, and I think that's a good, I don't know if I want to say analogy because it's a bit closer than that, but to just polyamory as a whole, like with any partner you've got or anyone you're seeing, if you class them as a partner, or if you're dating, or if it's casual, if you're friends with benefits, or even if you're just friends. Like, I have friends I can not see for months. Yeah. And when I see them, we just pick up where we left off. It doesn't matter that what we've been doing in the interim. It doesn't matter that in between that I've been doing different things, seeing different friends. I've been working. I've been doing countless other possible things, it doesn't matter because now I'm with them and we're just carrying on. We're doing our thing, and I think that's how it works with non-monogamy with different person. Like it's almost like compartmentalizing that you're with this person, so all your attention is on them. But then when you're not with that person, you don't need to be focused on them, and because you're doing other things, they're also doing other things.
Yeah.
What those things are irrelevant until you both come back together again, and then your focus is back on each other.
Yeah.
I think, and as long as you've always got, it doesn't matter how much time passes in between. And I think it sometimes in those situations as well, it can feel like no time has passed at all. When you spend time with someone you haven't seen for a long time, it can feel like it was just yesterday that we did this.
Yeah. There's a word that I often feel I want to completely redefine for myself. It's this term about being unfaithful to somebody or fidelity. People talk about an affair as being an infidelity. To me, it's not about just whether you are having sex with somebody. It's about is your emotional sense of love and affection staying constant, or is it not? Is your level of desire and passion for your partners staying constant, or is it not? I've heard of numerous married couples who are sleeping in separate bedrooms. They haven't had sex for years. They really don't do very much at all in each other's company. But they've not had an affair with anybody else. So they would term themselves as, well, I've always been faithful to my partner. To me, that is infidelity. They used to be loving and passionate, and now they're not. Whereas if I meet a third person and get involved with them, and I come back to my partner, I'm just as loving, I am just as passionate in bed. I am being faithful to them. I haven't changed. I haven't gone away. So it sort of turns the whole concept of fidelity on its head almost.
Yeah, and I think that thing with like infidelity is, this is the thing when people say like, oh, it's not cheating if you're like, oh, we didn't have sex, we just met up for a drink, or or something like that. Like, well, I'd still class it as infidelity, not because of what you did physically, but what you did emotionally, and like you went behind your partner's back to do this thing. That's where the infidelity comes in. It doesn't matter what you did. It doesn't matter whether you had sex with them or not. You still went and snuck around behind your partner's back, and that's the problem. That's what the cheating in air quotes is. It doesn't matter if you actually touched this person, if you kissed this person, if you had sex with this person. The fact you've just gone to spend time with them behind your partner's back, either without telling them you're doing it, or even worse, lying and telling them you're doing something else and then doing it, that's the infidelity. It doesn't matter what the actual physical situation was.
I think it's also an interesting question about a lot of people view it, having sex with somebody else very differently from falling in love with somebody else. And I can think of at least one good friend. When I was getting to know them, I went and spent a weekend visiting them. And there was one evening we were just sitting on the sofa together, chatting very warmly and openly. And there was a lot of eye contact. And there was something about the depth of the eye contact. I just felt deeply in love with her. We didn't have sex together, but making just prolonged eye contact profoundly changed my feelings about her. Now, if my partner was, I'm wondering, what would my partner find more worrying? That I made eye contact with somebody and fell in love with them, and then came back to my original partner just as well, the same as before, or if we'd had a one-night stand and never had anything to do with this other person again, which would actually be more threatening to the initial relationship.
Why is it the physical thing that people focus on and not the emotional part of it? But then I think that goes the opposite way around with, a lot of people who are in open relationships because of sex. So like generally swinging sort of situations where I've seen it a lot where there's this rule of like, yeah, we can have sex with each other, with other people without each other, but we can't, not allowed to catch feelings.
Yeah.
And I was thinking,
Yeah.
what does catch feelings actually mean? Because to me, I don't think I'd want to have sex with someone if there wasn't some sort of feelings, because otherwise it would just be like a toy, a doll. Like, I'd want to talk to this person and, have something in common, at least like them as a person and get on with them, in which case I think there are feelings there.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
I don't know exactly what it is they mean when they say feelings in that those circumstances.
Yes, I mean, other people are, if you are into swinging, that's fine and you're happy with the choice. But I personally would be much more bothered by my partner wanting to go off and have anonymous sex with other people. Then I would find that much more disturbing than if they got involved with somebody and actually saw them as a rounded human being and wanted to develop some sort of ongoing friendship with them. It feels much more human and nourishing.
Yeah, I think that's one of those things where, I mean, like, everyone is different and it's hard to, sort of put everyone in the same box. But, some people do just want that and don't want any emotional attachment. They don't need it. Maybe they just don't feel it, and they do just want the physical aspect of it. And that works for some people, and that I think some people are happy with that. I mean, I don't want to make it seem like I was talking about those sort of couples as doing anything wrong.
No.
I think for some, there are couples out there that it works. They don't want a strong emotional bond with anyone else other than with each other, but they can still happily go out and get the physical part from other people. Maybe without any feelings, and then still come back to each other and be happy. I just, when people use feelings in that, I always think, what do you mean by feelings? Because, I have feelings for all of my friends. I have feelings for my colleagues at work. Like, that does not to say I'm in love with them, but I feel something for them. They're people that I talk to and I want to talk to. I mean, I guess in terms of colleagues, I have to talk to, but there's still a connection there, no matter what it is. But I think people put this emphasis on, like, when they say feelings, they mean specifically falling head over heels in love with someone.
Yeah. And there was a television program quite some years ago now. I think it was called Butterflies, but I wouldn't swear to it. But basically, it was a situation where there was a sort of a middle-aged couple who were comfortably married, and there was no question of them splitting up. But she had fallen very much in love with some other guy, and she never actually made any attempt to develop a relationship with this other guy. But she had these sort of butterflies in her stomach every time she encountered him. And that's a really good example of a couple who are being sexually monogamous and faithful, but emotionally, she was being polyamorous. She still loved her husband, and she loved this other guy from a distance.
Yeah, so it's a bit of a different perspective on it, but it happens, and I think this is something that maybe a lot of people don't understand, or a lot of monogamous people don't understand, that it is possible to have those feelings for more than one person at a time. People think that, you're either in love with me or you're in love with them. It can't be both. So if you're now in love with them, that means you don't love me anymore and our relationship's over. But, well, no, both things can exist. And I always use this analogy of tea and coffee. I like drinking tea and I like drinking coffee, and I'll have a cup of tea and then I'll really enjoy it. I'm not sat there going like, I don't like coffee anymore. I'm just enjoying the tea.
Yeah.
An hour later, I may have a cup of coffee. And I'm not going like, oh, fuck tea. I'm done with tea. I never want to see tea again. I'm over tea. I'm going to drink coffee now. No, just at the moment, I want coffee. And then after that, an hour later, I may have another cup of tea again.
Yeah.
And to me, that's so simple. And I think everyone has that in their lives. But for some reason, when it comes to romantic or sexual relationships, they can't see it in that way. It has to be this, or like, all or nothing, just the two of us, and we're together, and that's that.
And as you were saying earlier, people seem to start having a completely different set of standards as soon as sex is involved. So they suddenly say, you can't be in love with somebody that you're having a sexual relation, or more than one person that you're having a sexual relationship with. And yet in every other area of our life, people completely accept that you can love more than one person. People love their parents. They love their multiple children. They love their grandparents, their uncle, their aunt, their dog, their friends. And nobody thinks there's any problem with all those different loving relationships with the very different qualities all going on at once. But as soon as you're having sex with more than one person, those people suddenly start thinking, you can't love more than one person at once. It's just this complete double thing.
Yeah, I think the same with not just with people, but in terms of like, I don't know, like hobbies, like, what, you were playing football last weekend, but this weekend you were going fishing. How does that work?
Yeah.
Are you cheating on football?
Yeah.
With fishing? Or are you only into fishing now and you're not doing football anymore?
Yeah.
Or like with music, like, hang on, you were listening to this artist, but now you're listening to this artist.
Yeah.
Why the two? Why are you not only sticking with one? Because that's crazy. It's insane. But for some reason, when it comes to relationships and sex, it seems to be so normalized that you only stick with this one thing. And that's like the only aspect of our whole lives that is the case for. It's really strange that it is that way.
Yes, I mean, as you started out saying near the beginning, there's this sort of cultural brainwashing. We're all told these stories about Cinderella or Snow White who go off with the prince at the end. There are no fairy stories about the prince going off with multiple princesses, or the princess going off with all 4 or 5 of the suitors who had to do the heroic tasks to win her favors. They always end up having to choose one person. The prince couldn't possibly choose any of the ugly sisters.
No, and I mean, there's I'd say it is a bit, with those sort of things, especially those early Disney stories, is a lot more problematic in the sense that it's always a poor helpless woman who needs a big strong man to come along and change her life, because that's the only thing missing from her life is this man, and once she has him, she'll be happy. But yeah, no, you're right. There is also does have this sort of monogamous undertones with it as well, that you're happy once you find this one person. You have this one person and then you'll be happy.
And then there's also very often a sort of heterosexist assumption that, I'm fine with my female partner having really close friendships with other women as long as she doesn't get close to any other men. And there's a sort of unspoken assumption there that she's never going to get sexually involved with these other women.
Yeah, that's the thing which I see online as well. Like even now, that it's like that people. As I was saying earlier on about people being uncomfortable with their partners spending time one-on-one with someone of the opposite sex, and like, but the same sex is fine. But what if they're not heterosexual? What? So are you going to ban that? So if your partner is, let's say, bisexual and can be attracted to both men and women, or let's say all genders, so not only are you going to not be comfortable with them spending time one-on-one with men, you're not going to be comfortable with them spending time one-on-one with women either.
Yeah.
So in this instance, are you going to lock them away in your house because they're not allowed to see anyone unless it's in a group setting or unless you're there chaperoning them? But yeah, let's say all these things that people say very much come from a heteronormative place, I think, where people don't actually think that. They only think about how it works for themselves and not other people. People think like, well, I'm a straight man, so I'm going to think like a straight man, or I'm a straight woman, I'm going to think like a straight woman, and don't think that actually there are people out there who are different.
Yeah. There's an expression quite often used in the poly community, which is a one penis policy, where men say, I'm completely happy with my partner going off and having sexual affairs with other women, but they're not allowed to have sex with other men. I am the only penis that she's allowed to get involved with. And again, it's a sort of assumption that getting romantically or sexually involved with another woman is not a threat to our relationship. But if you get emotionally involved with another man, somehow it will threaten our relationship. And there doesn't seem to be any very rational basis for that way of thinking at all.
No, and I'll just say this quickly to finish this off, and then I get on to some questions. That the same can be said for the opposite gender, and I don't know if you want to call it a one vulva policy.
Yes, yeah.
But I spoke to a couple, a man and a woman, on a swinging website a couple of years ago, and it turned out that their sort of boundaries were that she was allowed to have sex with other men, but he wasn't allowed to have sex with other women. And that was the first time I came across that, and I thought, oh, this is strange. This is different. This is the opposite to what you normally do here, one penis policy. But I still think it's problematic, and I am not interested. So I think it very much belittles the partner, that they only get to experience a certain thing while you have kind of more freedom than they do. It's
yes, to me, it's sort of an underlying insecurity, and I think it would be really healthy to address the insecurity rather than assume that the issue is all about who you're having relationships with.
Yeah, I think in the terms of a one penis policy, I think generally the man thinks like it's fine for their partner to have sex with other women because they don't see other women as a threat.
Yeah.
But other men, they do see as a threat. And again, that is all based just on their own insecurities. Right, so we've been going quite long, so I'll get into some questions.
Sure.
So can you tell me what has been, you would say, is the most rewarding aspects of practicing non-monogamy? Obviously, we talked about the whole thing of just being able to communicate well with partners and things, or is there anything else specific that comes to the top of your head?
I think it comes down to what I was saying near the beginning of our conversation about realizing that I could have extremely intimate involvement with multiple people, and I didn't need to be in a romantic or sexual relationship with them. That feels as if it's hugely added to the richness of my life. If I had been restricted to just one partner at a time, my life would have been a lot less rich.
Yeah, I completely understand what you mean. So next question is there anything that you would, if you were just exploring non-monogamy for the first time now, is there anything that you would do differently to what you did at the time based on the things you've experienced since? Or do you think everything, the way it worked out at the time is great and you wouldn't change anything?
I think over the years, partly because I've spent a lot more time thinking about it and talking to other people in the community, I'm probably better now at the communication skills. I've got a better idea of the range of issues to talk about. I'll give one example, is that there was a partner I was with, and for many years, for various practical reasons, we weren't able to share a house together. And I very much wanted to be sharing a house together. And it was only after I actually eventually, after years, moved in with her, I discovered that she was actually happier with us living separately. That has just never crossed my mind that anybody else would prefer that. That was a conversation I just never had with her until I discovered it was a problem. And now, as a result of that experience, I would have that conversation with somebody earlier on.
Yeah, I think that comes to one of those monogamous normative things that you just expected to live with your partner at some point, because why wouldn't you? But actually, well, why do you need to? Actually, and if you're happy without living together, and actually some people, I think some relationships can be a lot stronger for not living together, because people actually prefer to have their own space, and they don't need, if they don't need someone under their feet all the time or constantly there. They like having their own space to retreat back to, and then they can plan to see their partners as and when they see fit. It's not all the time just because you live together, so they are always there.
Yes, and even people who do share a house together, there are some people much prefer to share the same bed every night, and others who are adamant that they each want their own separate bedrooms, and they will negotiate which bed they're going to sleep in tonight. And it's really important to them to have the separate space that sometimes they're apart.
Yep, yeah, definitely. So next question is, are there any particular myths about ethical non-monogamy that you think should be debunked?
Any particular myths? Absolutely. The idea that it's all about wanting to leap into bed and have sex with lots of different people. As we said, it's about a whole range of emotional relationships and connections with each other and agreements and boundaries and doing different activities together.
Yeah, I think we share the same answer there. That's usually my go-to for this question, is that people think that it's all just sex focused, and it means that you're, a slut and you're easy, and all you want to do is add notches to your bedposts. Where for a very vast percentage of the non-monogamous people that I know and have met, that is nowhere near the case at all.
It's a little bit like some of the assumptions people make about bisexuality. As soon as they hear that someone is bisexual, they tend to assume that they want to leap into bed with anybody and everybody. And in fact, they might actually be really, really choosy about who they go to bed with.
Exactly, yeah. And you also find that most non-monogamous polyamorous people only have like a handful of partners max.
Yes.
And it's not a different person every night of the week. It's very far from it. It's actually usually quite a small closed group.
Yeah.
So next question is, if someone came to you and said, I'm interested in exploring non-monogamy, do you have any advice on what's piece of advice you could give me? What would you say to them?
I'd probably make 2 points. One is, as you said, it's all about communication. You have, if it's going to work, you have to develop your communication skills, and that's pretty much goes for monogamous relationships as well. I think the other thing I would get them to think about very deeply is, why are you wanting to do this? If your assumption is that being non-monogamous means that you can cheat on your partner and call it ethnical non-monogamy, or if you think it means you're going to leap into bed with lots of other people, then you're probably misinformed. Have you thought about how you deal with jealousy? Have you thought about what's making you discontented with your current life? At least be aware of what your own motives are.
I think that's a really great answer. And I think, one thing that I think a lot of people, when exploring ethical non-monogamy in the beginning, especially if it's in current place when they're already in a monogamous relationship and it's about opening the relationship, is, yes, you may get to have sex with other people, but do you realize that your partner will as well?
Yeah.
Because I think a lot of people just think like, oh, brilliant, I get to go and live this lifestyle where I can just have sex with people all the time. And well, one thing, odds are you're not going to be having sex with people all the time, but also your partner's going to be doing the same thing. So are you sure you're prepared mentally for how you're going to feel when those nights that you're at home on your own, lonely because your partner's out having sex with someone else? Have you thought about that? Have you thought about how you're going to handle that, and if actually you're going to be okay with it or not?
Yeah. And I get the impression from what I've read that there are quite a number of people out there who think, my relationship with my current partner isn't going too well and we're not having sex with very often, so I would like to open it up. And that probably is going to make a rocky relationship more unstable. It's not going to fix the relationship. If you're unhappy with your current partner, you probably need to sort that out before you think about opening it up.
Yeah, 100%. And when you said that the first bit of advice would be communication, it's not only that, but communication as the first step before you do anything else. Don't even think about taking the next step to opening a relationship and seeing other people or having sex with other people. Take the time to communicate with each other and make sure you're both on the same page. You're both understanding of what's going to happen, how everything's going to work. You communicate your boundaries with each other.
Yeah.
Don't skip any of those steps. And this is like my personal piece of advice that I would give, which I think fits here, is be a tortoise, don't be a hare. Because at the end of the day, the tortoise wins the race. Just take your fucking time. There's no rush. I know that it may seem exciting. You want to hit that finish line as soon as possible, but there's no rush. And if you try and sprint to it, odds are you're not going to make it. Be a tortoise, take your time, and you will eventually get to the finish line, and you'll feel much better for it.
There was a lovely song that was popular a few years ago. The line in the title that sticks in my mind was about pina colada, as a couple who are both feeling unhappy about their current partner. So they each unknowingly put personal ads to try and meet somebody else, and they list all these things they would like to do, one of which is drinking pina colada. Without realizing who the person is, they see each other's ads, agree for a date, and they realize that they had never had the conversation about all these other activities like drinking pina colada that they'd like. And as soon as they had the conversation, they realized they were actually very happy with each other.
It's funny that you mentioned that, because that song, I think a lot of people just know it as the Pina Colada song, and everyone knows the chorus, but no one's actually listened to it enough to know that that is the narrative.
Yeah,
and that's exactly it. Yes, a couple that are unhappy in their relationship. They both put personal ads out, and they end up responding to each other's personal ads, and they find out they are the right fit. It's just these things that they never actually shared with each other previously. And I can't remember the name of the artist, but I just want to point out for anyone listening, the song is called Escape. It's everyone knows it as the Pina Colada song, but no one actually knows the title. The title of the song is
that's
Escape.
The bit that's stuck in my memory.
It's the last line of the chorus. Come with me and escape.
Right.
So there we go. Which I think is a good way to come to the end of the podcast. So I do have one quick final question for you.
Sure.
Which is, if you could sum up what non-monogamy means to you in a couple of words, 2-3 words, what would the words be?
Intimacy, honesty, and trust.
Perfect. That's a good answer and a good couple of words. So that brings us to the end. So thank you, John, for sharing your experiences with me.
You're very welcome, Gaz. I thoroughly enjoyed the conversation, and it's great that there's somebody else out there having these conversations and publicizing the lifestyle, because I think it really enriches a lot of people's lives.
Definitely. So to everyone who's listening, remember, if you would like to be a guest on the podcast, then please send an email to spillingtheteapodcast@outlook.com and follow us on social media for all podcast updates. And I'll see you next time when I spill more tea on non-monogamy.